Hi, I'm Jonathon Goldman, the Public Works Director, City Engineer, and ADA Coordinator for the City of Sausalito. I'm here to present our fiscal year 2016-18 budget proposal for the Department of Public Works. Our mission is to provide quality, professional, effective, respectful, and timely services to residents, businesses, city staff, and guests. We focus on integrity in our relationships, both with our peers and our customers. We focus on customer service and satisfaction and on taking pride in our work, our workplaces, and our community. We hold sacred the community's trust. The department, among other things, the Department of Public Works is a key responding agency in emergencies involving our infrastructure, as well as weather and other disasters that have the potential for adverse impacts to public health or the environment. Here's a slide depicting our organization chart. I won't read all the names, but we've identified a number of key legally responsible officials for compliance with a couple of the permits we hold, wastewater and stormwater. So there are stars on the boxes for those legally responsible officials. We are responsible for, in the operations division, the maintenance division, for operating the sewer system. I won't list all of the things that we do, but there are a couple of key things that I think are most important. We're responsible for compliance with an EPA administrative order that the city has been operating on for a number of years with a mandate to reduce sewage spills. And that mandate also includes mandatory reporting that we submit to EPA and the California Regional Water Quality Control Board on a quarterly and an annual basis. We also have a relatively unique in Marin County private sewer lateral program where we permit and inspect and regulate private sewer laterals to a higher standard, partly as a result of the EPA order, but I think it's a very effective program here. In addition to operating our equipment and complying with our permits, we are responsible for marking and locating our utilities within 48 hours of receiving a what's called a ticket from Underground Service Alert, which is a mandated state program to protect against damage and risk to workers and the environment from damage to underground utilities. We also are responsible for responding to call-outs when we're not at work, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Unlike police and fire, who always have staff on duty, we don't. And some of the situations that come up that require our response are call-outs. Our operations division also includes streets and storm drains. We rely with this group in the maintenance division for compliance with elements of our stormwater permit, including reporting. We also regulate private development, perform a lot of vegetation trimming and street sign maintenance. We're responsible for both traffic signal and street light maintenance contracts. Also marking and locating utilities, as I alluded to, with respect to sewers. We also have custodians in the maintenance division responsible for cleaning and maintenance of city buildings and grounds. We have a landscape maintenance group responsible also for city grounds, medians, and parks. And we also have an engineering and administration group here in City Hall as opposed to the Corporation Yard, where we review and regulate planning and building permits for both private development as well as city projects. Generally speaking, those include Subdivision Map Act compliance, compliance with our stormwater permit, our sewer standards, and then we also handle encroachment permits for any entity that is going to do work in the public right-of-way, including public utilities as well as private parties. So we handle those permits and try to regulate the work that happens in a way that we minimize disruption to public, minimize risks to the public associated with work being done in the right-of-way. We also are responsible for design, permitting, bidding, construction management, inspection, contract management, and project acceptance and completion for city projects, for capital projects that we'll talk a little bit about later. The service indicators that we rely on for kind of accounting for the work that we do, and also helping us make sure that we're accomplishing an appropriate level of service, involves fairly detailed listing of all the different activities that go on and that we're responsible for, and then again making sure that we're keeping up with what we're expected to do. Strategic plan status update. We have several projects that have consistently been on either the priority calendar or the strategic plan that the City Council has adopted. We have an ongoing increased level of service or set of beautification projects for downtown, the medians, as well as the City Hall, Civic Center, and Caledonia Street areas. As you're probably all aware, we, by virtue of certificates of participation, now have some major capital projects underway at Dunphy Park, Southview Park, and the MLK Park and campus. We're also responsible for creating, for maintaining our assets from an asset management perspective, and that is kind of an ongoing process. The council prioritized the South City Limits to Ferry Landing pedestrian and bicycle improvements, also referred to as the South Gateway Project. The bulk of that work, the preliminary or conceptual design work, has recently been completed, and we're looking forward to getting permission to solicit grant funding to take that project further towards completion. We're also responsible for the city's climate action plan implementation, and for helping the Cascadley Marina rehabilitation project get completed. Here's a slide depicting both our last fiscal year staffing and our proposed staffing for the next 2 fiscal years. One fundamental change is that we're proposing to add another supervisory person in the maintenance division, another foreman, not a supervisor. We have a DPW supervisor and a DPW division manager, maintenance division manager, but are proposing to add a foreman to allow the division manager to focus more on capital projects and less on day-to-day supervision of maintenance division staff. Our budget proposal is indicated here. Some increases, some of which are a result of accounting changes in the way we're handling capital projects and the management of capital projects. Those are provided in more detail on a subsequent slide, and certainly if people have questions, I'm sure will be something that gets discussed at the City Council. Our maintenance division budget proposal. Sewer operations. General capital improvements, as indicated, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can see that generally speaking, we did not have salaries in previous year's budgets associated with capital improvements. By making some changes in the organization, we're proposing to have the maintenance division manager perform a lot more project management associated with capital projects, and therefore proposing to fund salary and benefits from the capital project fund. In addition, we anticipate the need for outside construction management assistance, so those costs are in the budget or in the proposed budget as well. And the capital projects themselves, construction costs, et cetera, are built into that operations line item. Same with respect to the sewer enterprise and the sewer capital program, on the order of $5 million in capital expenditures anticipated this coming fiscal year 16-17. This is kind of a roll-up of our entire department budget, both the last fiscal year as well as the next two proposed. Just a little bit of conversation on city infrastructure. The bulk of this information has appeared in previous budget documents, and I thought it was important to reiterate here, just to remind people how broad the city's responsibilities are and how long the life cycle for a lot of our infrastructure is. As most of you are probably aware, in the last 5 years, we've been successful in reconstructing a number of concrete streets that were constructed on the order of 90 years ago, and we had not reconstructed a concrete street since then. So those are pretty significant, pretty long life cycle, and also pretty significant capital improvements that aren't necessarily easy to make, but I think are really vital to the long-term viability of the community. Asset management, I alluded to also earlier. It's a recommended practice for effectively and sustainably managing assets at a desired level of service for the lowest life cycle cost. So it's that same approach that we've used in, and the City Council has used in appropriating funds to do things like reconstruct concrete streets when, for example, the traditional pavement management system software doesn't prioritize reconstruction of concrete streets because they're really expensive to reconstruct. So when resources are scarce, the software tends to try to recommend that less expensive streets be rehabilitated instead of reconstructing concrete. The community and the City Council have indicated that those priorities aren't the community's priorities. So with, for example, the passage of Measure O, the community's expectation that we will increase our level of service and do more of the long life cycle kinds of things that the community wants to see done is a wonderful mandate and adds to the number of capital projects and the capital budgets that we're responsible for spending and delivering. What goes with those capital projects is the need to conserve those investments. In other words, maintain and repair those assets. Even after we, for example, build a new park, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can from a maintenance and repair perspective to get not only the expected lifetime out of the park, but to the extent that our maintenance efforts can make a park last longer than it's designed to, then we're helping the community avoid replacement costs until it's absolutely necessary. Finally, just want to touch on Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. The city is responsible for compliance with the ADA, which mandated that all cities develop and maintain a self-evaluation and transition plan. It's really a living document, an ongoing process of identifying barriers to accessibility and then removing those barriers, subject to priorities that the community establishes about which barriers are the most significant, whether they're physical barriers like the lack of curb ramps or something like that, or programmatic barriers like, our website is difficult to use if you have macular degeneration or something like that. So the process of continuously evaluating and then prioritizing the removal of those barriers is the city's responsibility, and Department of Public Works ends up being largely in the lead position on those issues. There's a lot of information in General Capital Improvement Fund, and I'm not going to go over it in great detail, but it's generally the Department of Public Works' responsibility when the council prioritizes capital improvements in the form of appropriating funds for them. It's our responsibility to deliver those projects, and in the best of circumstances, deliver them on time and for less money than has been appropriated. That includes our capital projects in our enterprise funds, sewer collection system, parking equipment and facilities, the MLK facility, for example. Infrastructure projects in the Capital Improvement Fund include traffic and transportation projects, storm drains, buildings and waterfront projects, park and recreation projects, bicycle and pedestrian, city-owned rights-of-way, medians, land and open space, as well as the physical barriers, Americans with Disabilities Act barrier removal, and other major studies. With that, I've got my contact information up here on the slide, and I'm always available if people have questions or concerns about this presentation or anything else that the city and my department are responsible for.